this is like my start of talking about stuff aside from film and TV. But I think what I want to do also is like bring it back to film and TV though also. Like in a way that I want to talk about topics, but I also want to I want to talk about topics, but I also want to like just use film and TV as a as a segue. But I want to see today, I'm going to talk about reading the room. I just think that we as people, we don't really like read the room that well, and I think it's a thing that we need to obviously insert it into our lives. Obviously, we need to insert it into our lives, and we need to be cautious of these things, basically. I just think reading the room stems from like, for example, it's like you wouldn't make your stance on your religion in a group full of religious people. Like, it's that kind of thing. I mean, it's not a complete no-no, because that's the thing. I think to myself in society, like, some things, it's not to say it's a complete no-no, but I just think, like, in terms of, it's just, yeah, like I said, it goes back to reading the room and knowing what to say and what not to say. I mean, at the right time. Like, you just have to be around. I just think, as we all know, like, you have to be around the right people. And we know as people, we only say things to people who we feel that we are the most comfortable with. Like, you don't randomly say things to people. Like, you know what I mean? You don't randomly say things to people because you never know how they'll take it. I mean, I want to say, like, I feel like, even I've probably done this, I meant, is in terms of, like, when you're going to tell somebody something, but you're not, like, you're not putting a warning beforehand. And I think, obviously, that's what I'm trying to say. I think as people, we all have to learn these things, and I think it takes time and it takes self-discovery. But that's why I'm even talking about it now, because I just mean that, like, we should know these things more as people, and we should talk about them. And that's why talking about this stuff is always good. And that's why I think, like, podcasts are, like, made for. I mean, of course, it's just us talking about things to spread awareness. Like, I just mean that, yes, so even like that, even that is reading the room, because you need to say, oh, if you feel like you have something to say to somebody, but you don't know how they're going to take it, you probably just need to say, oh, it's about something serious, and well, can I share it with you? Like, do you know what I mean? You have to do it beforehand, but before you start speaking about it. Even though I'm talking about this, I don't think I'm an expert in any of these things. I don't think any of us really are. I mean, unless, obviously, I think, like, when I've been watching the guy from Dragon's Den, when I've been watching his podcast, I think, like, what's it called? Like, his podcast, so he obviously brings loads of people on there who are experts at things, because obviously they've made it their occupation, like, they've made it their job. Like, I think the most recent one was a woman talking about, she was talking about, like, sex. She was talking about that kind of stuff. And, like, obviously she's an expert on those type of things. So it's not even to say that what I'm talking about right now, I wouldn't say that I'm an expert on reading the room or any of that, because I think reading the room is something that but it's just like you have to you have to, like, I think, as I said, it's something that comes with experience. But like my example about about choosing when to say things. That was the main crux. Like it's just choosing, choosing what your audience is. So in a group of people, what not to say and what to say. Um, yeah. And I just think that also reading the room can come down to um boundaries, but I feel like sometimes people don't know people's boundaries. But I think then if we lead that back to talk about boundaries, then I think we as people should ask, actually, like we should ask before we say things. Do you know what I mean? Because yes, you just don't know how anyone is going to take a certain thing. And I just think like you can't ask people things like that, like when, like, I don't know, I think an example, I think you can ask people things that you hardly know them. And I mean stuff that like is a personal life. Of course, I feel like in regards to what I just said, I feel like, okay, if you're trying to get to know somebody, then it's like you're gonna ask questions. But I think that there's just a way to do them. I think, yes, it can't be too early on, and I think you have to be cautious in what you say. But the religion one, for example, is a very big one, like for myself, because as somebody who I don't feel like has much of a stance on on religion, or has no affiliation to religion. It's just I wouldn't really want to I wouldn't be somebody who would who would say to people, oh, I don't even God, because it's just a thing where it would feel like if you go in and say that you're just kind of dismissing their beliefs. But then I don't think that one person can have the power to do that. Like, I don't think that's the question. Like, I don't think it's a thing where one person has the way to say, oh yeah, I don't believe in God, so then everybody starts questioning their belief in God. I don't think it's like that, because I do think when it comes to God and those type of things, that like, faith is a big thing for people. And I don't really think that anyone can really change it. But I think what I don't like is, and obviously it's back to read the room. I think I'm going to be doing that a lot, because then as in like going back and then bringing it up and making examples. But yeah, it's as in like what's it called? In a second. Sometimes I think that, I don't know, people who are very religious don't really know the way to read the room, because they assume that everyone is religious like them sometimes. But I'm not saying this is that I think that this is all people of all walks of life, because that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that I just mean, like, in terms of like people like Christians and like Jehovah's Witnesses and lots of other different religions. Like, you'll obviously say that you're not a Christian, and then it will feel like you're kind of having some kind of, I don't know, intervention. What's the thing called? Conversion? Is it called a conversion or convert? Yeah, like you're having some kind of convert like lecture almost. And I think, like I was saying, how like that obviously reflects back onto reading the room, because I think, like, of course, as people, if somebody says that they're not that they don't have a specific religion, they don't believe in God or these kind of things, it shouldn't be, I don't really think it should be up for like speculation, up for debate. Like, I think it should be a straightforward thing. Like, that's what I mean. That's what I'm trying to talk about. I'm trying to say that it feels like in society, like people always want to say what's right and what's wrong, and nobody will really what's it called? No one will really read the room. But okay, I think with also reading the room, it can be hard because some things can be blind, like invisible to the eye. I mean, for example, I guess I don't know, not knowing somebody's sexuality, I guess, because I guess you wouldn't know unless you ask. So, with that one, that's probably kind of an invisible one. But I guess I feel like, because I know that sometimes like homophobic people do like they do like they will say things, and then there will be a gay or lesbian or queer, like, or any kind of couple, they will be one in the vicinity, and then they'll come out with a homophobic statement, and then it's like that's them dismissing the idea of reading the room completely, because of course if there's somebody visible who is there, then it's not, yeah, it's completely, as I said, dismissing the idea of reading the room, because obviously by what you've just said, you've insulted people who are a part of said community. You could obviously also read the room, like you could obviously bring it back to like racism, all these type of things. I think reading the room is just it's just, I feel like it's pretty straightforward. Like I want to say that it's straightforward, but I mean it's also not, because I just know that some people don't. But I think it can be hard because as people, we always just want to like we always just want to say things like, I know that I'm like this, I mean in terms of just like blurting things out. That's what I mean. We say things without caution, you know. And I think obviously that can be hard to control. But I just obviously think that sometimes, like, I think that people do, like how I was saying, like how I've been saying in this episode, I do think people obviously sometimes on purpose completely dismiss the idea of reading the room. And I obviously think that needs it needs changing, because it's like, yeah, if you read the room before saying something, then there's no upset parties, you know, and you're not gonna have a situation where you've upset somebody for a specific reason, because yeah. It's because I think even how I started off saying this with this episode of saying it's the idea of like, I think the religion one's a big one, because I think people who hold religion very dear, and I think when you say things that is like, oh, I don't know, I don't believe in your religion, it's like, hold on, but I obviously believe in my religion, do you know what I mean? So that's the kind of thing where yeah, that's the kind of thing where obviously, as I said, reading the room comes into play, because if you read the room, then you don't say the wrong thing at all, do you? And that's why I think it's quite helpful to do it. And it's funny because when we think about read the room, we do think about the fact that like read the room as a statement is used as like to describe. It's used to describe an ambience or like an atmosphere, and I think that's usually what people say. I think because that's what I mean when I first heard of read the room, people would say read the room in terms of like, I guess, for example, if like you're at a funeral, and everyone's crying, and then you start laughing, and then, you know, that's you not reading the room, because everyone is upset here, and then you're going to make a funny joke, and then you're not reading the room. But that's, I feel like when you think of reading the room, you think more about mood, and you think about vibes, but I think reading the room can also be about, like, your audience. I think it can be about People, like, when you know people and you know that there's things that you shouldn't say, because I feel like if you do it on purpose, it feels like it's an indirect or something. It almost, like, it feels like you're obviously like saying this thing on purpose because you already have prior information. So yeah, I think that's what obviously I just feel like with Reading the Room doesn't sit well with me, because I just think if you're gonna say something and you already know that there's people who are there, then you probably shouldn't say it. But of course, as I said, I don't think that in all cases that like that reading that it can be on purpose. I remember when yes, this woman was. I remember when I was working, and there was this woman who was saying something about how she didn't like gay people, and she didn't like gay people. It's like, it's not like she knew that, like, that was where I was, but then I still think, like, I still think, like, even with something like that, that, like, we shouldn't say things without knowing, like, as in, we shouldn't say things without knowing where people stand. Like, it was even like the thing, what was it? This made me, because obviously now I'm thinking about so many things, but it made me think of the clip that was going around from that podcast, which was Tonight's Conversation, and obviously how the guy obviously said, oh, he doesn't believe in the Me Too movement, and then it was like, he, of course, he in fact did not read the room, because obviously they were having a conversation, and it was about the fact that people in that room, like, it's not that they made it like crystal clear, not like they all indirectly said, oh yeah, this is happening to me, but some of them were saying, like, oh yeah, I just want you guys to know me too, like, you know what I mean? And they were saying that, but it was a thing where, as I said, he didn't read the room, because they were trying to have a conversation which was like trying to say that the people who were in that conversation had, like, similar experiences, but it's not like they were all like, conspiring about it or going around a circle and saying it, but it was a thing where they already knew what the conversation, and no, the guy, I guess, in particular, he knew what the conversation was, and then he obviously completely just said, oh, he doesn't believe in the Me Too movement. And it was just like, as I said, or as I've been saying, it's the whole disregarding of um of reading the room, I mean, because if you can already tell that there's people who have been victims in the space that you're in, like, it's like, think before speaking, as I've been saying. I meant is what I've been trying to say. I think to myself, though, I do think, like, obviously, as I was saying earlier, that I do think, like, I'm not expert, and I think that, like, we all make mistakes, though, as in, like, saying things before thinking. But his in particular, though, it is more so felt like, obviously, like, that kind of statement is definitely an attack. And I think, of course, if he was saying it in a different room of people who probably had the same view as him, it would be a different story. Which is also brings me on to I remember when I watched a video of Dean Withers when he did what was it? He did, obviously, it was him versus was it Trump supporters? Yeah, it was him. So as a liberal, him versus Trump supporters, and obviously that's not a question of, like, obviously, I don't know if Read the Room plays a part, because it's a debate. So Dean is supposed to pay everything that they say, but I think what I'm trying to say, because I was trying to say in regards to the tonight's conversation, I'm saying like what his statement that he made would have been better to make in a room full of full of transporters or something like that, you know? It's in a room of people who have the same views as you. And like I guess that's why the debate of Dean versus all those supporters, obviously it doesn't feel like it's a fair debate because he's in a room with like, I don't know, it's like, I think it was 20, like it's like it's 1 versus 20, I think. So it's him versus like 20 Trump supporters, and they all have, pretty much all of them, because they're all Trump supporters, they all have the same views. So it's a thing where like no one's gonna be no one's going to be rubbed the wrong way by anything or any of them have to say. But I'm saying that that's what I mean. Like, the tonight's conversation guy, he should have known in the room that he was in that it was the wrong place to come out with something like that. But I mean, if he was in a room with people who did like feel that way and he knew that, that would be fine. Because of course, if he says it in a room with people like that, they're all gonna eat it up. Like, they're all gonna say, yes, we agree with you. We also believe that the movement is not real. And it's just like, but that's what I mean. Like, you just can't say things and you already know that like people they've already made their stance clear, and you already know what they're like as people. So yeah, but I guess maybe we could bring this back to like, you know, I guess why I'm even talking about this, I guess, it's talking about like, you want to make sure that you're teaching people things, I guess. I don't really know. I don't know if I really believe in that whole idea, but I guess I do think that, as I said about us as humans, I mean that like everything is a learning curve, and I think that that's why we all have we all have these kind of discussions, and we all have these kind of things. Because even in that podcast, I meant in that episode where the guy says that, sorry, it's almost as if they was having an intervention with him. So I guess, like, I don't know if they planned to do that, like, as in to construct the episode in that manner. And I don't know, like, that, because that makes you think about the situations of like, what's it called? Situations of scriptness, like, or when stuff is scripted, like, you know, when you can tell on television and all that kind of stuff. What's it called? Yeah, so that's like talking about that. Like, you don't know. I guess it makes you think, yes, did they have that episode in mind and they wanted to lay it out in that way because they knew that he was going to say that? But I don't think so, because when I looked at that episode, sorry, when people were saying that this guy usually is on there as somebody who just says outrageous things. So I think like that's his. I don't want to say role. As I said, it's not scripted, but I mean it's like that's his. Like, that's basically what happens when he's on there. That he says things that are not right. And then, but I guess actually in a way, I almost think of myself about when you think about podcasts, is that there always probably is somebody who says something like that they shouldn't say, and they probably should have, like, you think to yourself, oh, they should have said it off camera. But then it's like, in a way, it turns it into a learning moment, because you hope that the person who said the statement will end up learning something somewhat. But we don't know how true that is, as in we don't know how true that is. And I think, I was gonna make an example, because as I said, I want to make sure to put, like, insert film and TV into a subject that I'm talking about. So I was gonna say, when I finished watching Playing Nice, what's it called? Yeah, when I finished watching Playing Nice, and I think in regards to reading the room, the guy from the, and I actually, before I dive into that, sorry, context warning, of course, because I want people to know what Playing Nice is about. Sorry, the couple, it's two couples. I mean, who end up realizing that their children are swapped. And yeah, that's basically what that show is about. The other guy, right? He talks about he likes to say to Theo, oh, or he'd say statements to like the kid who's called Theo. He would say to him, oh yeah, I'm your dad, and he would repeatedly say, oh, I'm your dad. And it's like, but that's not like, of course, that's not reading the room, because he's been, Theo, actually the child, he was with the other family, and he'd obviously grown up with the other family, and he would know the other guy who he'd grown up with as his dad, even though obviously the guy who was saying he was his dad was in fact his father. But it's like obviously that's I guess that's overstepping boundaries for one thing, and it's also obviously not reading the room, because obviously he should have known to not really say statements like that, because they hold so much weight, which is in fact exactly, like, spoiler alert, it's exactly what happened in the show, because obviously Theo would go back to them and be like, oh, like, you're actually not my family, because the other guy said so, you know what I mean? And that's the thing where that's not, as I said, that's disregarding reading the room, because obviously the room, in fact, is the fact that you guys have a situation where your children were swapped, but your children would be more attached to the person that they've grown up with. So saying that, like, it's changing the narrative, and obviously kids run with what you say. Like, not to say that children are stupid, but hey, yeah, not to say that, but children will run with whatever it is you say. And I think in a way, like when I watched the show, he also definitely knew that. And that's why he touched on it. So yeah. And obviously, no, now that I've just brought up boundaries, yes, as I said, if I said it already, I'm not sure. But as I said, I think obviously boundaries and like reading the room, they come hand in hand though, because you need to know, like, yeah, you need to know people's boundaries, which then obviously leads to reading the room. Because I just mean, you already know that person's boundaries, so you will know not what to say, and then that will be you reading the room. Do you know what I mean? Because I think, like, I don't know, I think boundaries can be very hard, and I think I know that, like, I don't know, it's weird. I think people don't really ask for people's boundaries a lot of the time. I think maybe sometimes we only associate boundaries with romantic relationships somehow. But I do think that, like, we should obviously think about boundaries in terms of platonic ones, or just in general relationships anyways, because boundaries are very important. It's like, you have to say to people, oh, I don't want you to say this specific thing because it makes me feel a type of way. And then of course, if you say that beforehand, then you've already set the boundary in place, and so it's not going to happen again. And as I said, it's reading the room, because then you already have that information to not say it. And I think that's why that's why I was saying prior information is always important, because I mean, if you know, then that means you can already read the room. Do you know what I mean? You can already do it, because you already know what you know. Like I said, sometimes people will not know that they're hurting somebody, because they obviously don't know. They don't know, like, they don't know anything about that person, basically. So that's why sometimes, like, that's when it's okay, sometimes, like, as in, it's okay when the person doesn't really know anything about you. But then I guess, as I said with that, I still do think that caution should be led with that, because I just don't think it's good to assume things about people. And for one thing, I think what obviously is a big assumption in general is that people will obviously always make an assumption in terms of sexuality a lot. And obviously that's like the story that I mentioned. I mean, I think that is a thing that we shouldn't do, because I do think then actually assumptions obviously also play a part in reading the room as well, because you'll say a subject like, oh, I don't know, we all care about human rights. Do you know what I mean? A statement like that. And that's us already assuming, like, even, well, by reading the room, but assuming and then coming up wrong. Do you know what I mean? Because we don't know that there could be somebody in the space who actually doesn't care for human rights, even though we know that would be quite impossible, quite crazy. Do you know what I mean? We would think that that would be alarming. Like, you know what I mean? I don't even know what to say. We would think that kind of statement would be alarming, but as I said, you still just like, you still never know. Like, that's what I mean. I even think with a statement like that, yeah, that's what I mean. But I think if you're around a certain type of people and you already know what their stance on different things are, then you can know not to say it. Like, like, I don't know, for example, if you're around a group of Tories, I don't know, you're not gonna say something, you're not gonna say something that you know that they wouldn't agree with. Obviously, unless, unless, I don't want to assume about anything about you guys, unless you want to strike up a conversation with them and have a debate with them about it. That's your own. I try not to do that because it's just a bit too stressful. But like, as I said, it's like, if you want to. And I guess that's even, if we go back to Dean, that's even like Dean's idea as a liberal. Like, he just liked putting himself in places where he can talk about his morals and his values, and I think that's a good thing. I meant as in, it's good that he does that, because obviously it's always good to talk about your morals and values as a person, but it's interesting that he does it with people that he knows will not agree with him. It's interesting because it makes you think he already knows he's up for a losing battle, but he does it anyway, because he thinks it's important, which it is. But it's just like, I don't know. I just know that I wouldn't want to put myself in a place like that. I mean, that's the type of thing. So I guess it's like, I would never do that. I guess if I was, as I said with my example about Tories, I wouldn't want to say something that I know that they wouldn't agree with. And that's me, even for the future, that's me already reading the room, like, even with me saying that now, that's me reading the room, because, I wouldn't say it, because I already know what the outcome will be. And that's what I always just think reading the room saves you from, it saves you from having a situation that you wouldn't necessarily have, or you wouldn't need to have, if you didn't say what you said. So, that's what I think, so, and I just think though, and I guess with reading the room though, I guess maybe we would all have different views. Like, like, I guess if a scenario was someone was to say, oh, but you didn't read the room, but you'd be like, in at the time when what I said, I thought I read the room, and you're like, but in fact, I did not, and I guess it's like, it's all about perspectives. You would say, oh, from the place where I was coming from, I thought I read the room. But, I can see that you didn't think that I did, and that's okay. That's why it's always, important. So yeah, that's literally, I feel like I could go on and on about this, because reading the room is actually very, it's very, very important. And it's just, yeah, like, even for example, it's just like, yeah, it's even for example, like, I think when we have conversations with people like who are, what's it called, older generation, sorry, we will not say things that we know will upset them, because it's just not a good idea, basically. Like, I was thinking about the fact that, like, I know how strong both my grandmothers are on terms of, I don't know, religion and like um and homosexuality, sorry. And so it's probably a thing where, like, it's not even that both of those things are like, I don't know. No, those things are passionate to me, but I just mean I wouldn't obviously say to either of them like, oh, like, I'm not a Christian, because that would be unnecessary. I feel like, that's what I'm trying to say. That's what I'm trying to say with reading the room. I just think, sometimes it's just unnecessary, because obviously you're just saying things for a reaction. So, first and foremost, read the room and then think about what it is that you want to say. Like I said at the beginning of this, though, thank you for listening so far. I mean, 36 minutes, which is so long. It's actually a record for me, I guess. I'm joking. I might be, actually. It might be, but I'm not too sure. I thank you for listening, and I just want to say, of course, as a takeaway, yeah, read the room always. I don't know, if you can't read the room, because that's another thing, actually. So that's what I mean, to leave off. If you can't read the room, I would say don't say anything, because that's what I mean. People always say, and I think it's always a statement of, what's it called? Like, not even speak when spoken to, but like speak when you have, when you have the right thing to say. Like, do you know what I mean? And when you know what it is that you want to say and how you want to articulate yourself without, without, what's it called? Like, almost like stray. So without the way that nobody will be directed or harmed in your statement, like, for example, I think the takeaway should be, guys, think about the guy from the tonight's conversation and think about, something like that, putting a big movement in a statement, and then saying it. Because I think, that kind of statement makes me also think about, if, I don't know, if a man was to say, oh, what's it called? If he was to say, oh, what was the suffragette movement even about? Or like, why did the suffragette movement even happen? You know what I mean? Because that comment itself, it's about heavy statements, right? And and heavy statements are known to affect somebody. It might not be everybody, but one person in the space at least. So it's something like that. Do you know what I mean? Don't make heavy statements without, yes, without assessing your surroundings. Because that's what I mean. And then the one that I just said, it's like, if a man was to make that statement in a group full of women, it would be like, the suffragette movement was led by women. Why would you say that? And actually, another thing, actually, I don't know. This one might be a bit tricky, but I was going to say about how, like, I guess when we make statements about gender, like, and I just mean when we probably say statements like, I don't know, women are evil. Like, there's all those stereotypes all the time. I think we have this narrative in terms of putting women and men against each other, but I think that we should probably do less of that. And I'm trying to say we should do less of it because I just mean we can have these conversations, but I just mean with each other. I just mean us as genders, like, men men can talk about women and women can talk about men, but I meant not with each other. Like, do you know what I mean? I meant not in the same group, because as I said, what I'm trying to say about reading the room is that one person will be hurt either way. So what I'm trying to say is that what we need to do, is have more structured conversations with like separate parties, if that makes sense. I might have lost you guys though, because you guys might or might not agree with that. But I just think it's just because I think like the whole women and men thing, like it's a thing where it's like it feels like it's a battle at times, but I keep thinking to myself that we shouldn't really make it that a battle, because we're all humans at the end of the day. And I mean, of course we can have constructive conversations about how we should, conduct ourselves. Of course we can do that, but I'm saying we probably should have them, like, as people, and I meant as people, like, just not with each other, because I just think like that one in particular is quite a heavy thing. And I do think that a lot of comments are made when it's a group full of men and women, you know what I mean? Like those type of comments you always see them, like, like even, what's that thing called again? I think it's called Black Chat. Yeah, I think it's called Black Chat. Yeah, but even like that, like they would say things. I remember it was very popular. I'm back on YouTube, but they would say things, and then, but it would obviously be a mixed group. And then I'm saying, because it's a mixed group, anything that anyone like says, or I don't know, a woman says something about a man, or a man says something about a woman, that like there's no end goal. It's just an argument, basically. That's what I'm trying to say. So I'm saying we need to probably have more constructive ways that we go about it in the future. That's where I'll leave off. You can say whether you agree or disagree. Like, it's always interesting to hear feedback on this type of thing. And I guess on that one in specific, because I think that the women and man thing is like, it's very like strong right now. And if there's ways to make it better, we should obviously be heading towards that. But yeah, thank you for listening. And as I said, there will be changes with the podcast, but it still was a thing where, as I said, I'm gonna still keep it on the topic of film and TV, but like we're still talking about other things here as well. But thank you.